this though, I mean, even though the question does have a polemic element about it, let's go ahead and talk about what conservatism is, okay? So as far as what conservatism is, when somebody, an American conservative, when an American identifies as conservative, typically, like, let me go into the types of conservatives, and Reagan is really the one who kind of unites all of these branches of the conservative movement. So first of all, there are fiscal conservatives, okay? A fiscal conservative wants low taxes and wants less government spending. Okay, so that's a fiscal conservative. I want less taxes, less government spending. Fiscal conservatives, libertarian, conservatives, those types. Okay, so you want to cut government spending and cut taxes. Now, I don't know. Gosh, this cough is killing me. I'm sorry about that. At least I'm not coughing on you since this isn't a live thing, right? All right. So then there are security conservatives. They want a strong military. They wanted a tough line on communism. Okay, so that's something that Reagan, when he's increasing military spending, he is reaching out to these security conservatives. Now, then there are social conservatives. Okay, now social conservatives, these are people such as the people who are part of the religious right. Jerry Falwell is somebody that you want to know about that, as far as Jerry Falwell organizing the moral majority. Okay, so these are people who want traditional family values. They want religion. They they're suspect of what people used to refer to as the gay agenda and stuff like that. Okay, so they back traditional traditional values. And so Reagan was somebody who was, he was a darling of the fiscal conservatives because he was cutting taxes and tried to cut spending. He was a darling of the security conservatives because he was willing to to increase military spending, and he was a darling of social conservatives because he wanted to, he was always promoting traditional values, like the Just Say No campaign, like the whole idea of like the war on drugs. That's something that appeals to that very traditional conservative mind. And so as far as that goes, now, Angela, I think, made a great point here about Reagan being known as the great communicator. He always knew, like, he took these different factions of the conservative movement, and he was able to communicate to all of them and bring them together. So, for example, one of Reagan's most famous speeches was his Evil Empire speech. Now, in 1983, he gave this speech to the American Association of Evangelicals. So he's speaking to evangelical Christians. Now, this group is much more concerned about traditional values than they are about taking a tough line against communism. But what Reagan did is he told a story of a man that he once had a conversation with, and how that man said that, I have two little girls at home and I would rather them die right now believing in God, okay, believing in God, than to die, than to live a life under communism, no longer believing in God. And of course, he gets this major standing ovation, okay? That because these evangelicals are excited because Reagan is speaking against communism, but he's speaking, remember, when we look at documents, one of the things we want to think about is audience. And so when Reagan reminds this evangelical audience that the communists don't believe in God, this is really a contest of religion, he's speaking to them in a way that they understand, in a way that gets them onto the Reagan agenda. And he gets this thing here. So yes, as far as what I mean, security conservatives, these are people who want a strong military. They see this as keeping the nation safe. Those of you asking in the thing there. So as far as that goes, now the other thing, did his government policy set the stage for the next presidents? Now, when Bill Clinton ran for president in 1992, Bill Clinton said, I am not just another tax and spend Democrat, because that's how the Republicans had been defeating the Democrats over and over again. The Democrats just want to tax and spend, tax and spend. And so Bill Clinton, when he ran for president, he ran as someone who, just like Reagan, Bill Clinton was great at communicating. And so as far as that goes, that Clinton says, I'm not another tax and spend Democrat. And so what you saw in the 1990s was we had a Democratic president for 2 terms, but a Democratic president who, after losing his first midterm elections in Congress by a landslide, he learned how to do things like he signed the Defense of Marriage Act, which defined marriage by federal law as between a man and a woman. Now, of course, the Supreme Court has since struck that down. And then so Bill Clinton, I think that when you look at Bill Clinton's casting himself as a moderate Democrat, I think that we definitely can see some elements of Reagan there, where the Democratic Party has this ticket that's got 2 Southern Democrats on it. So I think that that is something that, his policies did set the stage for the next presidents. And when we see, we see as far as George W. Bush and Donald Trump, both of them passed legislation that brought about tax cuts. So we see something where to elect a Republican is lower taxes. Now, of course, there's also George H.W. Bush, who famously or infamously said when he was nominated, read my lips. No new taxes. Now, of course, George H.W. Bush signed a tax increase when he was in office. And, that's something that Republicans never forgave him for that. They always saw this as some sort of heresy for a Republican to bring about tax increases. So I do think that Reagan's policies, especially when it comes to taxes, have definitely influenced other presidents. Now, also, when you hear Democrats talking, when they talk about raising taxes, they only talk about raising taxes on the wealthiest brackets. They never talk about raising taxes in general. So I think that's something that Reagan really kind of, we see the legacy of Reagan is nobody wants their taxes raised, right? Nobody wants to hear somebody say, I'm going to raise your taxes. So that's something that I think is important there. All right. So as far as that goes, let's go.